Morris Minor 1000 is a true icon of British motoring, loved for its simplicity, reliability, and timeless charm. It wasn't the fastest car on the road, nor the most luxurious, but it won hearts with its practical design, smooth handling, and unmistakable character. Here are 7 secrets about the Morris Minor 1000 you may have never heard of, or perhaps just forgot. The Morris Minor 1000 did come with a heater, but calling it effective would be a stretch. In fact, it became something of a running joke among owners. The heater worked by using warm air from the engine bay directed into the cabin through simple ducting. The problem? It took ages to warm up, especially on cold winter mornings. You could drive several miles before feeling the slightest hint of warmth. And even then, it was more like a gentle breeze than real heat. There were no temperature controls, no fan speeds. Fogged-up windows stayed foggy, and your fingers stayed cold. But despite its shortcomings, the Morris Minor's heater was typical of the era. Basic, functional in theory, and oddly lovable. It's a reminder of how far car comfort has come, and how much drivers once put up with, wrapped in blankets, hoping for a warm blast that often never came. In the Morris Minor 1000, even something as simple as cleaning the windscreen was a hands-on experience. Literally, unlike modern cars that use an electric pump to spray washer fluid at the push of a button, the Minor featured a manual windscreen washer pump. It was usually a small rubber or plastic bulb mounted on the dashboard. When your windscreen got dirty, you'd squeeze the pump, and that pressure would force washer fluid through a tiny tube onto the glass. It required perfect timing. Squeeze with one hand, then quickly operate the wipers with the other. In colder months, the water could freeze, and in hot weather, it might barely spray at all. The Morris Minor 1000 ended up wider than originally planned, and that was no accident. Designer Alec Isigonis, known for his unconventional thinking, used a clever trick to get his way. The original width approved by management was narrower, which Isigonis felt would compromise stability and handling. So, instead of arguing, he simply built the prototype wider than authorized, by several inches. When he presented it, he placed the model against a wall so that management couldn't easily measure it. They signed off on the design, unaware of the change. By the time they realized, it was too late. The wider body was already being finalized. The result? A more planted, confident drive and better interior space, especially for a small car. Isigonis's subtle rebellion paid off, and the Morris Minor benefited greatly from it. It's a perfect example of how creative engineering and quiet defiance helped shape one of Britain's most beloved classic cars. One of the most charming and old-fashioned features of the Morris Minor 1000 was its ability to be started with a crank handle. Long after most cars had moved to electric starters, the Minor kept this vintage backup option. If your battery was flat or struggling on a cold morning, you could simply insert the metal crank handle through a hole in the front bumper and manually turn the engine to life. It wasn't exactly easy. Starting the car this way took a bit of strength, the right technique, and a careful wrist. Kickbacks could hurt. But for many owners, it was a comforting backup that meant they were never totally stranded. In fact, during harsh British winters, plenty of Morris Minor drivers relied on the crank handle regularly. It was a nod to an earlier era of motoring, when cars were simpler, more mechanical, and far more hands-on. Today, it's hard to imagine cranking a car to start it, but for Minor owners, it was just part of the daily routine. In the Morris Minor 1000, trusting the speedometer was more an act of hope, often showing speeds higher than you were actually traveling. This wasn't necessarily by accident. Back then, regulations were looser, and manufacturers sometimes preferred optimistic readings. The logic? If drivers thought they were going faster, they might naturally slow down, making the roads safer. But for Morris Minor owners, it became a running joke. You could be confidently cruising at what looked like 60 km/h, only to be overtaken by nearly everything on the road. The inaccuracy came from the cable-driven mechanism, which could wear out, wobble, or just be poorly calibrated. Still, despite its exaggerations, the speedometer added character. While the Morris Minor 1000 is best known as a compact family car, it also had a practical side, with pickup and van versions that served businesses, farmers, and tradespeople across Britain. These commercial variants shared the same front end as the saloon, but featured a reinforced chassis and a completely redesigned rear. The pickup offered an open cargo bed, while the van had an enclosed load area with double rear doors, ideal for deliveries. Both versions were rugged, simple, and surprisingly capable given their small size. They became a common sight on British roads in the 1950s and 60s, trusted for their durability and ease of maintenance. Many companies even branded them with logos, turning them into mobile advertisements. Today, these variants are rare and collectible, offering a nostalgic glimpse into a time when even work vehicles had classic curves and unmistakable charm. One of the most distinctive versions of the Morris Minor 1000 was the Traveller, a charming estate car featuring exposed real wood framing at the rear. This wasn't just decorative, it was structural. The ash wood frame supported the rear panels and doors, giving the Traveller its unique, woody look, reminiscent of vintage American wagons. However, this design came with a hidden flaw. The wood could rot. Neglect it, and the wood could weaken, compromising both the car's appearance and its structure. In damp British weather, this was no small concern. Still, owners loved the Traveller for its practicality, character, and head-turning looks. It was part family car, part craftsmanship, and part high-maintenance relationship. It's one of the strangest ironies in automotive history. The Morris Minor 1000 was designed by Alec Isigonis, a brilliant engineer who ended up disliking his own creation. He was proud of its engineering precision, especially the handling and compact packaging, but he felt the final product was too conservative. Isigonis later found true satisfaction with the revolutionary Mini, which fully reflected his forward-thinking ideas. Yet, despite his reservations, the Morris Minor was a huge success, becoming the first British car to sell over 1 million units.